All right, that live button means that yeah, we're live, and hopefully the name of this is populated correctly. I'm seeing bass mixing tips, and that's not what we're doing today. What we're talking about today, as I let this populate on the live stream, is we're going to talk about how to prep your tracks if you're going to send them to a professional mixer. The side benefit of this is going to be if you want to archive anything that you ever work on so that you never lose any of your source tracks. So I'm just giving this a second to populate. And while that's populating, I do want to tell you one of the reasons that I've been doing more of these live streams for free is that I've got a brand new class that starts up on June 30th over at FaderJocksPro.com. It's a mixing masterclass, a little over 3 hours worth of video content where we mix a contemporary country song, and I show you a lot of the tips and tricks and strategies that I use to get or what I call a retail ready mix, something that's ready to hit the streaming services. Well, it's ready to be mastered to hit the streaming services and is competitive with anything else in that particular genre. It's full of all kinds of things that I do as a professional mix engineer, day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year, that really help to make things sound great. And this particular track even has a few pitfalls in it, a few things like not having a live drummer, but using Superior drums. How do you make your Superior drummer, the module, sound like real drums? Some little tips and tricks that you can use to really beef that stuff up and make it sound great. But yeah, if you go over there to FaderJocks.com, you can see that. You can, right now it's in what we're calling the pre-sale mode. So it's only $29.95 for the class. After June 30th, that's going to go up $10. It's going to go to $39.99, I believe. But the other thing, the reason why you're going to want to go ahead and sign up for that class and start taking those lessons. The moment that you sign up, you automatically get access to the first 3 lessons. So the first hour and a half of content, gosh, there's more than 3 hours of content because the first 3 lessons are an hour and a half almost. But also, we're doing something really cool with all these new courses that I'm starting to post on Fader Jocks. In the pre-sale, we're registering you. If you buy the class, we're registering you for a giveaway. We're giving away 2 of these. It's still in the plastic and everything. I will take this out for just a second. We're giving away 2 of these small diaphragm condenser mics. I've used some small diaphragm condenser mics just like this in the studio. It's about $150 value. They're great for acoustic guitar. They're great for really any kind of acoustic instruments. If you want to put it on hi-hat, it'll actually take the SPL of a guitar cabinet. You could use this on a guitar cabinet. If you don't have a small diaphragm condenser mic in your studio arsenal, you need one. It's one of the things that should be in every home studio's toolkit. Heck, in any studio's toolkit. If you go to any professional studio, they've probably got 6 or 8 of these in different varieties. Well, we're giving away 2. So if you sign up, you get 2 chances to win. It comes with the microphone, a really cool padded bag, comes with a clip and a stand adapter, and also a foam windscreen. So that's about like $140 value in what we're giving away. We're giving away 2 of those at the beginning of the week to people that register for the class, and we're also giving away a channel strip. That's how you get to it. You go to FaderJocksPro.com. Giving away 2 Schoeps Omni channels by Waves. I use them in the mix in the masterclass, and in a lot of the things that I've done on my YouTube channel where I've shown you mix tips and strategies, you've seen me use the Schoeps Omni channel. I use it on every single mix. We're going to give away 2 of those too to anyone that signs up before June 30th. So again, by now I think we've got our stream populated, and so we'll let everybody know that there's a brand new mixing masterclass that's on pre-sale right now over at FaderJocksPro.com. It's Mixing Masterclass #1 because it's the first one that I've done specifically for Fader Jocks. And it's mixing contemporary country music, basically. If you go over to the site, you'll see there's also 2 other masterclasses that are up there that are for sale that I had done originally for my Patreon. And then there's another course on there, Drummer's Home Studio Boot Camp, which is more than 8 hours worth of video content and all kinds of other downloadables for anyone that's looking to put a home studio in and you're a drummer. So there's already some great stuff up there. We're going to be opening up the monthly subscriptions if you'd rather do it that way. Monthly subscriptions are cool because not only do you get access to the entire course catalog, but every week we do live streams, kind of like this one, like we're doing now, except I don't spend the first 10 minutes trying to sell you any any classes because you're already there. We're going to be doing live streams every single week with Q&As and product demos and little smaller lessons about very specific engineering cases. So anyway, yeah, FaderJocksPro.com. It's right there. If you put that into your browser, you can go and sign up for that stuff. Do the pre-sale if you want to get in on that. So the whole reason that I'm live streaming today, the whole reason that I really wanted to do this video for you is I have this conversation every single week with people that are sending me things to mix. And the different people that I mix things for are working in all kinds of platforms. Not everyone is working inside of Pro Tools. Some people, it seems more and more every day, are working in Logic Pro nowadays. Other people are working in Cubase or Nuendo, Studio One, Reaper. The list goes on. There's tons of different DAW platforms. And for me, 100% of the stuff that I mix now is in Pro Tools. It just it is still the industry standard, and I still just find that there's so many things I could do faster in that platform than in any of the other platforms. So it really is my DAW of choice at this point. Plus, it works so well with all the hardware around the studio here. The thing that's sort of required, not just of me, but really any mix engineer, is that you want to send them the native raw audio tracks for whatever you've recorded. And it's really, really important that you do a little bit of housekeeping on the front end of this so that you save time, you save money, and you save your mix engineer a lot of frustration. What you want them to be able to do is to pull your tracks into their mix template or their mix session and be able to just immediately see everything and get right to work. Now, I do offer a service for my clients where I do that for them. I used to have interns do it. Now I just do it. But there is an hourly charge. If you want to avoid an hourly charge, this could save you $125 to $250 at least. Just the stuff that I'm going to show you today. And it really is just a matter of how you pack up those files and how you label things so that you make sure that you get that mix engineer the files that they need to do their work the best way possible. But also, the side benefit for you is that you're going to find out one way or another, the easy way or the hard way, you're going to get to a place, it might be 5 years from now, it might be 10 years from now, where you're going to try and open an old session that you worked on, and maybe you want to remix something, maybe you want to revisit something, maybe you want to completely redo a tune and just start with some of the tracks that you originally had worked with. And I've seen it more times than I care to catalog in my brain, is you go to open that session and there's missing files. And for the life of you, you can't find some of these files in your session. It hasn't happened to me a ton with my own sessions. Had it happen a few times. That's why I'm sharing this with you. But with clients that I have, they are forever asking me, calling and asking, Brian, I'm trying to find these files. I don't know how to find these. My DAW just tells me it can't get to them, and I don't see them in my audio bin or my audio folder, whatever your particular DAW stores those things in. So this method that I'm going to show you today is a foolproof way to make sure that you never lose anything that you ever work on, at least not the native tracks. And I'm going to use an old paradigm. We're going to think of that as being, I'll flip over to my DAW here. We're going to think of this as prepping your master tapes. Back in the day when you recorded stuff on tape, you usually would walk out of the studio with, say, a reel of 2-inch tape. For some people, it was 1 inch. For some people, it might have been 1/2 inch. But most professional studios, you'd walk out of there with some 2-inch tapes that had all the original source files for everything that you had recorded. Now, depending on how you had them mixed, you may not have access to the actual mixes themselves, especially in the old days when we were using consoles to mix this stuff. But you did have those source tracks so that you could always go and pull them back up on a machine in another studio and remix that or re-record stuff or add to it. So what I've got here, this is a session that I'm getting ready to remix for an album that I did probably, 2006. Almost, gee whiz, 20 years ago. We're remixing this for a project. And so you'll see here, I've got a session that has a whole lot of tracks to it. You see that we've got drum tracks, we've got a bunch of tom overdubs, we've got percussion, we've got some other stuff that looks like a breakdown section with different instrumentation. Then there's my rhythm section. There's some bass. There's several different acoustic guitar tracks. You see an A, B, C, D, E. When we recorded this album, we pretty much made sure we had every sonic possibility. So when we were recording acoustic guitar, we actually had 5 different sources between mics and DIs and all kinds of stuff. And I still have those. In my original mix, if these were muted, I did not use them. But I do want to make sure that I archive these things. And as I move to a different platform to mix them, I want to make sure I carry them over. Because I may, 20 years later, decide that I'd rather use some of these tracks. But there's a lot of tracks here. A lot of electric guitar tracks. We've got some nylon string guitar. Ton of acoustic guitar. A lot of synth tracks and piano tracks. Organ, strings, horns, other synth stuff. We got our guitar solo that looks like it was doubled. We've got our lead vocals and doubled vocals and a ton of background vocals. So all totaled, it looks like I've got at least over 150 tracks. And so what I generally wouldn't do if somebody else were going to mix this is I would not just send them this. Originally, this was done in Nuendo, but I opened it in Cubase today. I would not send them this Cubase file or a folder of all this stuff. What I want to do is I would want to send a mix engineer consolidated files that they can immediately pull into whatever platform they're using to mix, and they can open this stuff really well. Now, the first step to make sure that I give them what they need is I need to make sure I've done a little bit of housekeeping. You notice that all of these tracks to a certain degree have some editing done on them. Now, some of the editing we already baked in, like we already baked in the editing on these 2 tom-toms. You can kind of see there's no tom bleed there. If you look at the waveform, there's nothing but the raw tom hit right there. So we already did some editing on that. But you'll notice that there are these blocks of information from where we've done some tom overdubs. What you want to check on every one of your files from track to track and from edit to edit is you want to make sure that you've got some kind of fade in, and you may have to zoom in a whole lot to see this, but when I hover over, you can see that these have all got a slight fade in. That's just a few milliseconds. So I get a clean fade in, and then I get a clean fade out as well. If I look on that, this one has a pretty long fade out, but it's a fade out nonetheless. So there's a fade out on every one of these tracks. And if I hover, even, again, some of these I have to go really close in to see. My tambourine, there's a few milliseconds of a fade in there. What this does on the beginning and the ends of your tracks is that it makes sure that you don't get any pops and clicks when that file starts. And you may say, well, Brian, I don't hear any pops and clicks when I'm listening to my tracks. Why do I need to go and do all this stuff? Just because you don't hear them doesn't mean they're there. These are digital pops and clicks that once you go through this process that we're about to go through, once those digital pops and clicks are there, they're there forever, and they're almost impossible to get rid of, other than going in every instance and clipping those things out or doing some creative editing. So we don't want to create that job for the mix engineer. Also, sometimes you're not hearing those digital pops and clicks because maybe they're masked by something else. Maybe there's a pop or a click right when a kick drum hits, or there's the attack of some other instrument that's covering that up. It doesn't mean the pop and click's not there. It's still there. It's just being masked. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that the tops and tails. Ooh, I think puberty just hit. My voice is changing. The tops, the beginnings, and the tails, tops and tails, all have fades on there. So that's sort of step one of this process, is make sure that you have tops and tails that are faded in and faded out properly. Now, for some of you, depending on how you put your tracks together, you may have a lot of work to do, like these single tambourine samples. Now, I did this, I remember doing this before I actually did a copy and paste on these tambourine samples. But I actually, so that way I only had to do it once. When I copied and pasted, they automatically had them in there. But that's some housekeeping I sort of did as I went. But also you'll notice there's a few of these tambourine loops. So where we took a bar of a tambourine pattern, and you notice that there's a crossfade right here. Now, I don't like where that crossfade is, and this is part of that housekeeping. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to change that crossfade. It crossfaded in on the beginning of the next bar. I wasn't real happy with that, so I went back and changed that. This one may have it too. Yep. So for whatever reason, that crossfade didn't open up right when I opened it in this new version of Cubase. So I'm checking all of this. This is part of my housekeeping that I go through before I do the next step that you're going to see. So again, this is sort of tedious housework that you have to do. Let's get over here to the middle here. Tedious housework that you really have to do before you get ready to prep these tracks. Oh, that's good. Before you get ready to prep these tracks and send them out. So I'm just going through and all these crossfades. I just want to make sure that I'm not losing the attack on the first part of that tambourine loop. I think this is the only one that I didn't get when I was double checking this stuff. So just pull that in, just rein that in. All right. So, just go through, and this might take you an hour. This may take you an hour just to go through, and I'm not going to do it in real time here because most of this is already done. But you'll notice tops and tails of everything has a fade in, tops and tails everywhere on every single thing. The only thing I don't worry about is if I laid in a store, we'll call it a store-bought sample. Like this probably already has I did put this is a reverse crash. So I did put a top on this one, but it probably doesn't have a tail because it was a pre-made sample. Let me just check that tambourine again over here. That one tambourine part now has me worried because I thought I'd gotten these. Yeah, see, that one I'd gotten. Just zooming around. If you got any questions while we're doing this, you can just put those into the comments. Yep, see, that's gonna be a slight increase in the attack on that loop when it comes in. I want to make sure I'm not crossfading over the top of that. Boom. You see how the amplitude changes when I get that crossfade in the right place, right? So yeah, this is one of those where I guess opening this old Nuendo session, this didn't transfer over the way I wanted it to. So we'll fix that. Now, as I'm going through and doing this, realize that your particular DAW may have different ways of doing any one of these functions that we're covering today. So, unfortunately, I can't read. If that's Chinese, I can't read Chinese. So, sorry I can't read Chinese and answer that question that's over on Facebook. But after I'm done, I tell you what I'll do. I will put that in Google Translate, and I will find out what that question is, and I will answer you. And I will try to use Google Translate to put my reply in. I do reply to everything that's in the comments on any of my social media. Oh, thanks. Also, like music and mixing. This is amazing. Oh, thank you. Now you just saved me having to do that. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching the live stream. We're going to be doing more of these every week. And so, yeah, so I'm just cleaning up these. And for me, now, in Pro Tools, there's actually some other ways that you can kind of do this as a batch. But one of the reasons I'm doing this by hand as well is I want you to see what I'm doing so that you see what to look for and you see how to fix it. Because that seems to be the biggest issue with clients that I have is, trying to explain over the telephone, or worse, trying to explain over email what process they need to go through to make sure that they've got their tracks prepped properly to send to me. And when I'm explaining things like this, it's a lot harder to say this and or to type this into an email and to have them understand. So showing you this sort of in real time is really kind of the best way to do this. So, all right. So same kind of thing. Now you notice here, that one actually I think is there on purpose because it gives that one an attack it didn't have. So I'm going to look at these. The rest of these look fine. Okay, cool. So now that I've done all of that, and to save time, I'm not going to do those. I can block and copy that later. So don't do that. Fix it. It's just in the live stream. I know what that is, and so I'm just going to leave it for now. I can fix that in my mix session. Anyway, so what you'll notice is I do have some edits baked into this. In this case, there's a breakdown in this song for looks like a couple of bars, and so in the bass, we've actually cut the bass out for that. Now, if I change my mind later and need to send that to the mix engineer, I could go ahead and put that back in there, but it's pretty much, I know that breakdown is not going to have bass in it, so I'm going to leave it. But you notice that there are some bass edits here. So I want to make sure you notice that all these edits are crossfaded. So that edit's got a nice crossfade going into that edit, and this edit should have a nice crossfade, going to the next thing. And we want to make sure that those are there so we don't have any pops and clicks when the bass changes notes, wherever that edit is. And then, more importantly, any of these spots that you see where there are edits. There's an edit here in the guitar. There's edit in these guitar tracks. There's an edit here where we spliced two different takes together. All of these, you'll want to go in and you'll just want to take a quick look and make sure, did I crossfade these? And these should, that isn't crossfaded because that actually is a hard cut. That was actually a hard cut. I remember that one. But you'll notice here, we did crossfade those. So now what you can do is you can go through, and I would probably go through, and I'm put my headphones on so I can hear this real quick. You should be able to hear this too. You can go through, and on something like that, if you're curious at all to whether or not you're getting any pops and clicks, you're actually going to go through and you can solo those tracks and make sure you don't hear any pops or clicks. In solo, if they're there, you're going to hear them. So let's listen for a second. So no pops and clicks in those edits. So I know, even though that one little stripe of an edit doesn't have a crossfade on it, that was one where I remember when we did that, even though it was 20 years ago. I remember that was one of those that we just kind of fabricated that one chord or something. Anyway, so all of these tops and tails on everything. Now let's go down to the vocal a second, because almost every vocal that ever gets recorded these days is really a comp of multiple performances. So, and you can see this one is the same case. So this vocal is a comp or a compilation of multiple takes. Google Translate, good evening, because it's my English is not good. Hey, audio not coming through. Make sure you don't have the should be getting audio. I'm sending it. Let me type. Audio not coming through. You should be getting audio on that. Sorry. I will check that. I'm curious about that myself now. Now you got me curious. So we're just going to double check while we're sitting here. Audio on that. Yeah, okay. We got audio. Hit your mute. Make sure you don't have your mute on. All right. So back to this vocal. So this vocal is a comp of all the stuff that, you know what? That audio from the Cubase isn't coming through. Thank you. That's what you were saying. That's because I didn't put it into the web stream. How about that? Let's turn it on there and on there. All right. Let me let you hear that again. Thank you for telling me that. This is actually coming through a different bus than normally. So let's see. Let's go back to that guitar track we were just looking at. So yeah, so here's our guitar edits right here. Let's listen and make sure that that's coming through. Cool. I see that in the meter now. Thank you for alerting me to that. I appreciate that. We're actually going through a different output than my usual Pro Tools rig for this first part of this. So I'm going through and I'm listening to every one of those edits a lot of times just to make sure. But if you do your crossfades right, you shouldn't have any pops and clicks. But then going back to this vocal a second. So you'll notice that with these comps, I make sure that I do the same thing. If I'm coming into this, I'm gonna make sure that I have a fade in. In this case, I'm fading into the breath. We'll solo this for a second. And you tell me that it's better left alone. So in this case, I've got a fade out at the end of that line and a slight fade in before the next breath. That was just an editing choice that I made. But in this case, I've got a crossfade between those two pieces. So I'm crossfading. It sounded more natural to put a crossfade there. So sometimes I'm going to put a small pause there. Maybe there's a mouth click or something that I want to get rid of. And so maybe that's why I'm putting the gap in there, to get rid of that. But most of these are going to be straight crossfades from one, even in some cases crossfading in the middle of words. Hopefully that sounds good. Let me put my headphones back on a second and make sure that sounds good. Let's see. Here we go. Said I need to Faraday's, and you tell me that it's going to my head. So with a good crossfade, you don't hear that. To Faraday's, and you tell me that it's going to my head.
but it doesn't feel no bigger to me. And I'm running back through all the things you said when you were lying in bed asleep.
All right. So all those crossfades and all of those tops and tails look like they're all good on that. So for this is a pretty big job because there's 150 tracks in this. But maybe you don't have that many. Maybe you've only got 30. It's a little bit more manageable for you. So what I'm going to do here is now that I've got that happening, I'm going to now each DAW is going to do this differently. I'm just showing you how Cubase does this. I'm going to pick a spot at the back of the tune after everything has played through. So you kind of, I've sort of marked it. There's this little bit hanging out on the bass, but that we were saving that. There's nothing that's actually in the song that's part of that. Same thing with this little nylon. This was a hook that I just set out to the side. The actual end of the song is where you see my cycle marker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my my tool here. I'm going to just highlight from here. I'm going to go all the way to the top corner. So I've got everything highlighted. I make sure in some cases, some of your DAWs require that you have your cycle markers put this way. Again, everything is sort of different. You're going to have to find out in your own DAW how you're going to need to do this. I could do some things where I detect some silence or close some gaps. There is some crossfading features that are in Cubase. But for me, I like to go in and look at it on my own and really make sure that I've really done this the way that I need to do it. So, and again, for some of your DAWs, you're going to need to look in one of your menus. In other cases, you're going to be able to see this in a contextual menu like this. All right. So for me, I'm going to bounce selection or render in place. And we're going to try bounce selection. I'm going to show you kind of what that does first. We're going to say replace events. All right, so in this case, this doesn't do what I want it to do. You notice how everything's still, I'm going to undo that. Everything still doesn't jive the way I need it to. I need everything to start from 0. So again, we're going to block and copy this again, or block it. Not do the inactives. And same kind of thing, I'm going to right click this. I'm going to check my render settings real quick. Dry, transfer channels, separate events. Tall mode off, 64 off. It's going to say, you know, where is this? And it should. What I don't want to do is I don't want to mix down to one audio file. Don't want to mix down anything. Mute source events. We're going to render and see if this is going to give us what we're looking for. All right, so I'm going to abort that for a second because that isn't giving me the thing that I want either. What that's actually doing is duplicating my tracks. So So what I did there, instead of just highlighting the individual events, I highlighted the whole timeline from 0 on the timeline to the end of the actual song. So there's two different ways that were the wrong ways to do it. I don't want to just highlight the files. I actually want to highlight the timeline so that it encompasses all of the files that I'm using. If I only just do the actual files in the edit window in most DAWs, it's only going to render for the lengths of those individual ones. So your start time on everything is going to be completely different. We need the start time for all of these to be exactly in the same place, and preferably at 0. Now you'll notice our song doesn't start for like 8 bars. So I have 8 bars of silence on the beginning of all this stuff. Hang on a second. Flip this over to flip this over to bars and beats a second. Hang on. Let's do bars and beats. So yeah, so you'll notice that I've got, oh gosh, looks like 13 bars. That's a pretty common thing for me. I don't ever start my recording at 0 on the timeline. I always put a little bit of space in front for a whole variety of reasons we can talk about later. But used to, we would worry about hard drive space. When hard drives were expensive and you'd pay $200 for a 500 gig hard drive, we would worry about unnecessarily making files that were super, super big. Or like in the case of some of these samples and loop things that we did, in the past, I would look at something like this one track here for this breakdown section, and I would see all the silence on the front and the back end and be like, man, that's a lot of hard drive space we're wasting. I would try and work around that. Not anymore. Hard drives are cheap enough that you just want to go ahead and just do this. You want to make sure that all your files, no matter how short or how long, all start at 0 and all preferably end in the same place. All right, so now you'll notice that, and this is going to take a second, you'll notice that when we did that, it renames a brand new file. And we get a brand new file from start to finish with that file name for the track. So kick 1 gets kick 1, and it also has a sort of a sub name here. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go back in and I'm going to rename these files to make them easier to find. And let's see, this is one I did not go back and look and see if I remember how to do this. It's been a while since I've done this in Cubase. Pro Tools, you just double click the file and you just change it. Tool. Somebody who uses Cubase could probably tell me exactly how to do this quicker. Let's see. Tools, range selection, draw. I'm going to look and see if I can find it here real quick. Probably should have prepped myself. That's the part, bounce selection, render in place. Rename selected events. There we go. It doesn't have a keyboard shortcut, so I'll have to contextualize this every time. The event name is kick 1. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually put a qualifier on that. So I get a Z kick 1, and I'm going to block and copy that so that has Z kick 1 everywhere. I'm going to do the same thing for every single one of these files so that rename. We're going to rename all this stuff. Okay. So I'm going to do this for all 150 tracks. Now, I'm not going to do this on the live stream because you don't want to watch this. I'm going to rename every one of these files that the computer rendered for me with these names. Now, I usually use a qualifier like Z underscore, or maybe if the title, maybe it's the first letter of the title, or if the title has 2 words, maybe I'm using 2 letters. And so what that allows me to do is when I go to look in my regions folder or my audio bin, wherever these things are stored, then I can immediately see all the things that I bounced out. Okay? So here's what we're going to do real quick. I'm going to quit that. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to show you a different project that I just did this for. So that it's not 150 tracks. All right. So it's on my desktop. All right, so I've got, where are you? Regular Guy source files. All right, so this is for another tune that we're doing the same thing for. We're doing some remixes. So check this out. After I did all of my my consolidations, Regular Guy was the name of the tune. And so in my audio bins folder, I had RG underscore and the name of the track. Now, on a few of these, we did some gain changes that I don't know if I wanted to keep them or not. So I made sure to label those as well. So I have a double vocal 1, and I have one where we gain changed this. Now, in some cases, you may not have this. You may just have the double vocal 1 and electric guitar 1. You may not have these gain changes. This is specific to this project, but I want to make sure that I delineated between those. We had a snare track, and then obviously we gained that snare up digitally in the DAW, but I wanted to keep both of those. So if I didn't have these, in fact, I'm going to move these for a second. Just to simplify what we're seeing for you, because you may not have these in your project. All right, so you're going to end up with just the qualifier and then the name of the file. And if you'll look at every one of these, you're going to see that this is 3 minutes and 10 seconds. It tells you the sample rate and the bit rate. This is old enough. This project actually is from about 2000. So we were recording at 44:116 back then. Bass guitar, same thing. 310. Same sample rate, same bit rate. Every one of these files, if I click every one of them individually, is going to be 44:116. So they're all the same length. You should notice too, they're the same block size. They're the same file size. So what do we do now that we have these? And as a professional mixer, this is what I want to see when someone sends me their stuff. Now, these are all the raw tracks. There's no processing on these tracks. There's no delay or compression or any of those different things. This is just all of the raw tracks. I want you to, for you in your own recording projects, I want you to treat this like this is your master tapes. This is your 2-inch tape. So if anything ever happens to any of your sessions, you lose your mix files, something goes corrupted with your DAW installation or that session file, you have the original source waves that you can always pull into a brand new session and start over on your mix. So that's one of the important reasons to have this, as my Pro Tools is booting up here. It takes a second because there's a lot of plugins. But for me, most of the time I don't need whatever that processing is that you've done. If you've done some compression, if you've done any kind of, put any reverb on stuff, like I don't need those things as a professional engineer. I'm going to make those choices when I'm mixing a track for you. And so all I need is the original source tracks. Now, the one time that I would say maybe have 2 versions of a track, if you have, let's say you have a keyboard part where maybe you have either some kind of effect in there, some kind of ducking effect, or some kind of delay, or something that really is a part of the character of the sound of that track. You want to hold the character of that sound. then what you probably want to do is bounce two versions. Bounce out a version or render out a version that has that effect on it. So if you have something that has some kind of timed ducking effect, like on a pad, where maybe you have a solid pad that's just boom, it's just a solid chord, but you've put in some kind of ducking effect to where it decreases the volume and only plays the full volume of that chord, say on the end of the beat, and it goes, A lot of dance music does this, and it opens and closes at a very specific time. That is an integral sound to the production that you've put together. The sound that you intend is not just the straight chord, but it's the ducking sound. In that case, I would render both of those out, and you're going to make a track sheet note for your mix engineer. Hey, you've got 2 of keyboard 1, and they're labeled A and B. A is just the straight chord in your notes. We originally recorded it this way. Maybe the B version is, this is with the ducking effect. This is what I want it to sound like in the track. So the reason I would want that original source file is maybe there's an issue with the timing of the ducking. Maybe I hear something as a professional mix engineer where I'm like, we can tighten this up and make this better. I know what they're trying to do. Let me use my tools and my ear to really pull that thing into where it needs to be to make sure that the track is tight. So that way, if I got the original source track, I can go back and manipulate the original audio. I don't have to try and manipulate your rendered version of that sound. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make a regular session. I'm going to do this in 2448, even though these files are 44.116. That's just because they're 25 years old. I'm actually going to upsample these, and as much as anything, it's just for the benefit of added top end through my effects and all the things that go into 2448 are going to give me. So I'm going to make this session, and we're going to call this, let's put this over in our fader jocks. There we go, regular guy mixing. So what happens when I get your files? Well, I'm going to open a session, and I'm going to look at your folder, and I'm going to see that you've consolidated all of your files, and everything looks great. And I'm just going to go to audio import and regular guy source files. For now, I'm not going to pull those things that have the gain changes in them. I may pull those after I take a look at these. So I'm going to pull all those. You notice I block them all, and since they're 1644.1, I want to go to 2448. I'm going to convert, and we're going to hit that, and this is just going to take a second. So all of that housekeeping that you do on the front end of this is going to save me, well, we've been talking for about an hour now. So far, it's going to save me at least an hour with that session we were looking at. It's probably 2 hours worth of time having to go in and render those things, rename all those things, make sure that they're what they need to be, and then I can import them. In this case, you just send me a folder. It has all the consolidated files from 0 to the end of the song. Everything's labeled correctly, and preferably either in an email or maybe a PDF. You've sent me a track sheet. Here, I've actually started taking some notes on that session we were just looking at so I can put my track sheets together. In the case of the bass, I made notes on originally which one. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different tracks that are the bass. New track. We're going to go right to the session start. Voila. Everything's in alphabetical order, but everything is right there. Everything's in sync. Everything is ready to play. So I can at least kind of preview what you have. I'll go back to this track sheet thing. So as I'm doing this, I'm making notes. For me, in the original mix, which one of these tracks I preferred for constructing the bass sound. There was only 3 of 7 tracks we used in that particular session to give me the original bass sound. I made a note of marker names, and that's the next step that I'm going to do here in just a second. So marker names and bar numbers, so that whatever your markers and bar numbers were in your original session. Hopefully you're using markers to mark the sections of your tunes. You make sure to let me know what those are, because otherwise I've got to listen through your song at least one time, maybe twice, to make sure that I put markers in the places and that I label them what you've called them. Later, if you've got notes and you say, in bridge 2, I wanted this to happen different in the mix. Well, if I'm calling that a pre-chorus and you're calling it a bridge, then I'm not going to know where to look in your tune. So you let me know, what is your nomenclature that you use for the sections of your tunes? Where'd you put your markers, and what are the bar numbers? So that I make sure that I put those in the right spot. I also made a note of those different sources, which ones I didn't use at all in the mix. Like with E-Guitar 8, I didn't use E-Guitar 8A or B at all in the mix, in my original mix. Now, if I were to send this out, someone may listen to those tracks and go, no, I like those better than 7. I'm going to use 7 in the mix. So now that I've got these markers written down, it makes it super easy. I don't have to listen to anything. I can just do this. I can go right to bar 13, and I can hit my create markers. I can write intro, and I can put my marker right there in the intro. And then I can go over to bar 21, and I can say verse 1. And I can put my marker there in 21. Some people like different colors for their sections. For me right now, I just like having the names. I don't necessarily need different colors for all my sections. Some people like that. I can take it or leave it. All right, so I'm going to go to 37, and then I'm going to call 37 chorus 1. And then I'm going to go over to... what is it? 45. 45 is verse 2. And then I'm going to go over to 61. And this is chorus 2. And then I'm going to go over to 77. And that's my solo. So I'm going to name my markers exactly what you named your markers, exactly in the same place. So now I'm going to go to 85, and that's the bridge. And then I'm going to go to 93. And so I'm just going through and doing every single one of these so that my bars and markers end up the same as yours. And then that allows me to be able to go through and put all that stuff in and be able to make sure that everything lines up the way it should line up in the session. And then from there, all I'm going to do... Oh, you know what? I'm putting bars and markers in for this other one. That's fine. So the next step for me after I put my markers in is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to arrange my tracks. So once I've got all that other stuff that I needed in, actually I am going to put different markers in there because those aren't the right markers for this tune. You see this snare, tambourines, wood blocks, shakers, whirro. I'm going to zip all this stuff to the top. And what else? Vocals are going to go to the bottom. And lead vocal is going to go to the bottom. Yep, I've got all that in. Cool. All right. So now I should be able to hit play on this one. And so I can immediately get into mix mode and at least start bringing things around. And as I'm listening, I'm going to change some track names and get that RG out of there. So I'm kind of using the time that I need to hear what it is that's there. Ooh, that Wiro is loud. And since I've got it labeled, I'm going to pull it down. Everything's mono right now. It's just dead set in the middle except for, I think, the stereo track of the... You can hear that double. So I'm going to pull those doubles down. So now, as I have this, probably put it in my headphones here. Yeah. All right. So as I'm sitting here with this, how about I give you that? Now you hear it. Woo! So I can actually go through and listen to all these. And what I didn't give you. Let me finish setting up my mix tracks here. Mix bus. Bring that over here. And make sure everybody's going to the mix bus. And then I'm going to send this out to you so you hear it not. Oh, I need to change my I/O. You get to see me change this for you in real time here. So all this has got to change. Default. There we go. Now you'll be able to hear this through. Yep, there we go. All right, I can turn this down now. There we go. All right. So now that I've got everything labeled, I can kind of listen and pull some things around, you know? If that tamarine's a little loud, I might kind of pull this stuff around a little bit. Reorder that a little bit. That tamarine's really loud. Cool. All right. So within a couple of minutes, I've got everything set up so that now I'm ready to mix this thing. I've listened to the tune one time through, and I can actually start to go through my process of checking out the kick drum and doing whatever process I'm going to do to that. Snare drum. In this case, we don't have tom tracks, but the overhead, the hi-hat. I'll go through each of these tracks and do my process for mixing. And inside about 15 minutes, I can be ready to mix, and I can be familiar with the tune, have a general idea of the arc of things. What is the arc of this tune? What do all the pieces and parts do? How much percussion do I have? You know, it makes it a lot easier when I'm kind of listening. Everything's sitting there that I can very quickly just kind of hear and go, all right, well, I'm going to need to move some things around and kind of do a little bit of panning on some stuff. Put the guitars opposite of each other, at least to start with, and do all these kind of moves that get me really set up for going and making my first real pass. That's, for me, is my goal, is within 20 minutes, if the client sends me the kinds of things that I need the way I need it, can I, within reason, within about 20 minutes, be able to actually start to mix this tune? Depending on the number of tracks I've got to work with, maybe some of the bussing that I need to do. There's special bussing that I do a lot of times where I group things together. So like I may go in here and do a routing folder for the drums. This is just part of my mix process where I have a routing folder for drums, and then a routing folder for percussion. These are things that I can do very quickly once I've got all that stuff in place. If I want to color code things, then I can just very quickly go in and color code these things. The rest of these I won't put into any kind of groups. I'm going to relabel that, though. And then I'm off and running within 15 or 20 minutes. Saves me a ton of time, saves you money if you're a client that I'm mixing things for. And if you wanted to make sure that you always have the source tracks for whatever you've worked on, then you've got the original source tracks for everything in that particular song, so that later on, let's say in this case it's 25 years since I've even seen these tracks. 25 years later, I could open this stuff up very quickly, pull it into a session, and I'm immediately working with those things. Whether it's to remix it, re-record stuff, resequence it, rearrange it, or just do a recut altogether. I've got all those tracks originally as I saw them the last time that I worked with them. So hopefully this shows you exactly what you need to do. Now for your DAW, Ableton's probably going to have a different way to get these things out. Studio One's going to have a different way of getting things out of your DAW. But the end result is the same. You have a folder that has all of the source tracks that are labeled exactly what they are. You don't have anything that's labeled audio, or you don't have anything that's labeled an odd thing. Like if I have multiple tambourines, I'll have a tambourine 1, 2, 3, or 4. You don't have to put tambourine rhythm, tambourine hit. You don't have to be that specific. But when it comes to things like vocals, in this case, we've got a lead vocal that is the keeper lead vocal, and then we've got some other takes that are our doubles. Well, if it's pretty obvious to see that on one of these doubles, it is not the primary vocal. I mean, this one that doesn't have vocal all the way through, I know that's not the primary vocal. It's pretty easy to tell that that's a double. But if this one that's labeled double vocal 1, if it wasn't labeled double vocal or extra vocal or whatever, I like if it's a double of a lead, then put double. If you have more than one double, label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Kind of like what we've done here. I can tell very quickly of all the vocal tracks that I have, which one is the keeper lead vocal track. That's the one that I want to make sure that I don't mess that up, because maybe the double vocal is just one pass through, whereas you took a lot of time with the lead vocal to meticulously get exactly the vocal performance you want. Well, you're going to be angry with me if I use the double as your lead, because maybe there's some timing things that you didn't spend enough time on, or maybe there's some tuning things that you didn't really worry about on that are not present in the lead vocal. Same way with guitar solos. Now, you may have multiple guitar solos for the same one, and maybe you're going to leave it up to the mix engineer and or the producer and the mix engineer to decide at the very last minute which one of those solos to use. Make sure that you label them: guitar solo 1, guitar solo 2, guitar solo 3, and on your track sheet, you want to make sure that you leave that note for whoever's mixing, whoever's handling this, that, yeah, you've got 3 solos there, and the one we want to use is number 1, but if for some reason that doesn't work, 2 and 3 are good alternates that you could choose as well. I do have that on occasion where people they'll leave the option up to me. Which one of these do you think is best? The reason that people send me things as a mix engineer is they want a different set of ears on something that they've been working on. They want to get someone else's take or someone else's philosophy on what a track should sound like. It's the reason why you see, especially on a lot of label projects, you may have 3 or 4 guys mixing the same single. They're all going to have a slightly different take on what that single should sound like. And so a lot of times a label will pay 4 different mix engineers or 3 different mix engineers to mix the exact same tune and see who has the better interpretation of it. So that's the other thing when you're hiring a mix engineer. You're not just hiring somebody that knows how to take all of these raw sounds and get a better mix for you. You're also you're handing someone all of the colors in the palette, all the pieces that they need to put together a portrait of the song for you. And how they shade and how they hue is maybe radically different from one mixer to another. So that's the other reason you want to make sure you hand that person everything they can possibly would possibly need to do the best job that they can for you. So I hope that helps you with this. I love hanging out with you guys. I see a lot of new faces over on YouTube that normally aren't hanging out with us during a live stream. If you're not already subscribed to the channel and you're over on YouTube, make sure you click that subscribe button, hit the bell, and you'll get notifications anytime that I'm doing a live stream or I have a new video. There'll be 2 new videos next week. And I would be remiss if I did not flip over here and tell you that we just opened the Fader Jocks Pro site where I've got mixing courses. Those are all right there at faderjockspro.com. And right now we're going through a sign-up period for the first class that I made specifically for Fader Jocks. This is, we call it Mixing Masterclass 1. It's not the only mixing masterclass that's on the site, but this is a Mixing Masterclass 1 contemporary country song. We go through an actual client tune. That's the one thing about all these masterclasses. I'm putting one a month up on faderjocks.com. Every one of these masterclasses that I'm putting up there are real world projects. These aren't mocked up things. These aren't, I'm not a frustrated songwriter who wants you to tune into my YouTube channel for mix tips. I'm a professional audio engineer who mixes records every week. And so thankfully I've got clients who are totally cool with me turning any project I've worked with them on, most projects I've worked with them on, into masterclasses. So what we're doing is I'm just systematically going through and I'm taking tracks that I've done over the last 25 years and turning them into courses for you. So you can actually see real world tunes that I've worked on as an engineer and as a producer. And as someone who sneezes at dust. Ooh, I think I stirred up the dust around here. And I'm showing you the techniques and the tools that I use and how I use them to get retail ready mixes for my clients. And that's one reason why I think that Fader Jocks and this YouTube channel are incredibly valuable. These aren't just things that I think work because I've done a bunch of my own stuff in my own little home studio over the last 30 years. Over the last 30 years, I've been a professional full-time engineer and producer. And these are tips and tricks that I've used on countless recordings that are all out in the wild, that have all lived out in the world, and that have really gotten mixes that my clients are super happy with. In some cases, some of the stuff that we're going to do master classes on, some of those tunes have ended up on television and in movies, have been played on the radio. And so we're going to dig into those, and I'm going to show you exactly what I did to get those mixes. And a couple of these, like the one we were looking at earlier that's 150 tracks, I'm doing a complete remix of that and seeing if I can beat what I did 20 years ago with new tools and new techniques and new knowledge and new experience. And I'm passing those things along to you so that you can get better mixes in your home studio. So just go right over there to Fader Jocks Pro. Sign up for the mixing class, the Mixing Master Class number 1 that officially opens on June 30th. If you sign up today, you can get the first 3 lessons. You can watch those. It's about an hour, maybe an hour and a half's worth of material automatically. If you sign up for the course before June 30th, you get signed up for the raffle. It's a drawing for, we're giving away 2 two different lucky people will get a small diaphragm condenser mic that I've used in sessions. Well, not this one. I've used the same kind in sessions on acoustic guitar and hi-hat and all kinds of acoustic instruments, fiddle. I've used this particular one on fiddle before. It sounds great on that. So 2 lucky people are going to get one of these. If you don't have a small diaphragm condenser in your kit in your studio, you really need one. But it also comes with a mic clip, a stand adapter, a nice padded bag, and a foam windscreen if you need one. You could even do vocals with this if you needed to. If you didn't have a really good large diaphragm condenser mic, you could do vocals on this and get a pretty usable track out of it. Much better than, say, an SM57. So we're giving away 2 of those to people that sign up for the masterclass before June 30th. We're also giving away 2 Shep's Omnichannel plugins by Waves. So that's all I got for you today. I appreciate all the new faces hanging out with us. I'm seeing in the chat. Thank you so much. And thanks for helping me navigate some of the stuff with the mix that comes to your web stream. It changes every time I do this. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you got a ton out of this. And until next time, be awesome to yourself. Be extra awesome to everybody that you meet. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you. Thanks so much.